Witches. I'm Taylar.
And I'm Amber.
And this is
Waking Up the Witch. We're your neighborhood witches. Each week, we talk about all things witchy and connect with other humans in a storytelling format about navigating life on this floating rock.
We're two curious ladies trying to understand the human experience. But while we do that, we think it's important to honor the people that lived here before us and honor the cultures and traditions that we're being inspired by.
This podcast is about waking up the witch, which means we are learning and growing every day. That being said, we are always open to feedback on how we can do better.
The views and opinions of our guests don't necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Waking Up the Witch. Now, let's go, ghouls. Hey, Amber.
Hi, Taylar. Today's episode is so fucking lovely.
It was really good. When I was in the bathroom, I was thinking about like one of the parallels to a lot of other people. Well, not a lot of other people. So if you listen back to episode 10 with Jess Funk, she kind of alluded to just like always knowing that she's like, she didn't really even say this. What I take from it is that she said, and he also said, they're both just always felt like spiritual beings. And so the path that they chose to enter this light may have been Christianity or Mormonism or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped them to be in whatever spiritual practice they are today.
Yeah, return back to their soul, basically.
Which I think if I would have been raised Mormon, I could have been indoctrinated way easier than Christianity. Sure, planets, celestial things.
Yeah,
sounds good to me.
Aside from the rules and regulations and exclusions of things, like there are so many things about it that's just like icky to me, but there are definitely a lot of things that
are beautiful,
are pretty fucking groovy, and I can get behind. So I get it.
Which I mean, same thing. Like if you read the Bible as fiction and not real, then there's a lot you can take from it for life lessons.
Totally.
But the problem is people treat it as a literal, like as literal, which it's fucking not. It's fantasy.
Yeah, totally agree.
So that's where the problem comes in. But like reading, if you were to pick up the Bible and read it as a fantasy book, you could be like, wow, I learned so much from this. It was really beautiful. I use it for introspection.
It's really fascinating because like we learn and read about like goddesses and gods and all these other mythologies, and they're called mythologies, and I really feel that the Bible is also another place to pull from that is its own type of mythology, but it's just not recognized as such. And like we can take lessons and moral situations from learning about these goddesses or gods. You silly goose.
Has that always been black?
What?
That tray?
It's blue.
Did you paint it?
No, it's been.
Was it brown once?
No.
It's switched like dimensions.
Navy blue. Oh yeah,
I'm in a different reality. That was brown.
Timeline hopping.
Yeah.
No, that I have two of them I bought together, and they've always been navy blue.
No, they haven't.
What is it? The Mandela effect? Is that what just happened to you?
Something. I swear lately there's been like different buildings in different places, and Kurt's like, that's always been there, and I'm like, no the fuck it hasn't. Or like different houses, and I swear I've like hopped timelines. Which I asked for every night before bed. I'm like, please put me in my highest timeline.
So she's referring to this table that we always use to put the laptop on for recording, because the system that we record on, it does have like a video option. We have yet to figure out using the material, but yeah, we just put it on this table to record ourselves, so later we can go back. And it's always been blue, but not for Taylar. It's always been brown.
It was like wood colored.
So strange. Anyways, yeah, today was really lovely getting to meet and talk with Jaxon. I've heard so much about him and your friendship. It's really lovely to meet him. He's a wonderful soul and so knowledgeable, passionate, and curious, and just everything you could want in a guest. Very well spoken, interesting
Good
storytelling.
Yeah.
Like he made learning the basics of being Mormon very fascinating and fun. And then we got to like learn a little bit about his own journey and leaving the Mormon Church and what that looks like now in his life. And
yeah, Jackson's not somebody I keep up with super regularly. We have like stayed in contact for all of the years, but we don't really talk. And so it was really nice to catch up. And he is someone that I assumed when I put out a witchy podcast would be judgy of this. And so once it came out and he said him and his wife were loving it and listening to it, I was really shocked because first of all, I didn't know that he left the church. Like, I don't know. We haven't spoken really in years. You know how you're like Facebook friends with somebody, but you don't talk that much. You just kind of follow their lives, or like Instagram or something. So it was really nice to just hear where he's at now. And I love that all things he gets interested in, he becomes a major nerd in. So it's like, okay, it was wine, then it was coffee, now it's psychedelics. It's like, I love someone that deep dives into things, and then we can pick their brains later because I'm not like a huge deep diver.
Surface learner.
Yeah, like all
just
riding
the wave
and all the things.
of knowledge.
So it's great for us to get to talk to experts, and hopefully we can have him back and deep dive on dreams.
We found out at the very end that he loves to dream journal, and he's really been deep diving into
like interpretations.
Yeah, just learning about his dreams and the knowledge that's available to us through our subconscious. I think it's so fascinating, and we're recently just talking about how we want to find somebody who knows stuff about dream interpretation. So we will 100% have him back probably pretty soon to talk dreams too.
Not too soon, because we have so many exciting dream guests that we have. Let's talk about dreams. Guests that we have put on our manifestation list. I asked because the answer is no if you don't ask. The answer's already no.
You're already at no.
So what does it hurt asking? I asked, and they have all said yes so far. So
thanks for being so brave and putting us out there.
You're welcome.
It's very exciting.
We're super excited for everything to come. I feel new big beginnings happening, and I hope you enjoy.
Forward movement is happening right now.
It is.
We're slingshotting it through our future. It's amazing.
We called it in, and it's happening.
Yeah, baby.
We hope you enjoy this magical episode.
Yes, and thanks for listening to us.
Enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to another magical episode of Waking Up the Witch. Let's just start off by taking a couple deep breaths to ground ourselves and connect our energy. Breathing in and release. Breathing in once again and release. And this last one, breathing in the deepest breath you've had all day, holding at the top. Breathe in. Hold. And release any stuck energy. I'd like to call in our higher selves and our spirit team to be here with us today. Help us to connect deeply, creating a safe and vulnerable place here today. Help for whatever is most needed for ourselves as well as the collective to come through and to be shared, all for the highest good and the highest light of all involved. Thank you. Okay.
Hi. Hello. Today we have one of my oldest friends, which is so weird to say. Jaxon, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey.
Hey, it's good to be on. Yeah, as Taylor said, we have been friends for a long time. I'm pretty sure it's close to 18 years. I
That's
think I
so
was 15 at
awesome.
the time. Yeah. So, random connection. I don't even know if the website exists anymore. I believe it was called Tagged.
Yeah, I don't even
like
remember
AOL days.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Some random social media type
Before it
website.
existed.
Yeah. And we connected and just have stayed in touch ever since.
And my favorite fact is you guys have actually never met in person in real life, right? Just
not yet.
It's true.
Virtual,
Yeah.
OG virtual friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who are you?
So that is the question. I love that question because I have no idea. Kind of that Jim Carrey answer is what I want to give, but that's not helpful. It's kind of the who am I? And you could go down the philosophical route, and my approach. I'm now kind of into the Buddhist area. So there's a little bit about me. Love meditation, love exploring the sense of self, lack thereof, all those things. But brass tacks, I'm a dad. I love that one. We'll go with that label. I've got 3 kiddos, 7, 6, and 18 months. Been married to my wife for, 3 years now. Nope. Is that right? Yeah. Let's see. We did a surprise wedding. We didn't tell anyone.
Oh,
We just went and eloped out of the courthouse.
Perfect.
And then we did a hand fasting ceremony in the thick of COVID. And so that's where the hiccup is. It's always like that. Wait, which date do I go off of? Do I go off the hand fasting or the legally?
You do the fun thing, and then it just creates confusion for yourself for the rest of your life.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey. She is probably more quote unquote witchy than I am, in the sense of she practices, rituals. She has an altar set up. Her goddess is Hecate, and some really powerful experiences there. And
do you participate in her rituals?
I do. Yeah, when she invites me, I try to make it so if I'm invited, I'm open to that. I'm very willing to participate with her. And then, of course, if it's just something where she needs her time with the divine, then allow that.
What a good husband.
Yes. So, we invited you on today because we're very curious about just the way you grew up and being in the Mormon Church. So, before we jump into that, did your wife also grow up in the church?
In a sense. So she grew up, her parents were never married, but they had split custody. So her dad and stepmom here in Utah, devout Mormons every Sunday. She was technically baptized at the age that Mormons are, 8 years old. And then she left, teenage years. And so it was kind of a in and out thing, where she'd go out here to Utah. She grew up in Indiana and came out to Utah once a month. So in that sense, she had some education in the Mormon world, but not every single Sunday morning.
Okay, I'm sure her story will be wrapped up into yours in some ways, but let's start from like the very beginning of your life and your journey through Mormonism. Talk to us like we know absolutely nothing, because for the most part we don't know a lot about the Mormon Church.
Yeah.
And then round it back out. Yeah, I feel like you're a great storyteller for some reason. So just start from the beginning, and then towards the end we'll bring it back.
Yeah, I feel like I've always had kind of this spiritual side, and it just happened to be that I was born into a Mormon family, and so grew up with that. And first early spiritual experience, you could say, I was close with my great grandmother. She babysat me while my parents were off at work. My mom was in nursing school and all these different things. So when she passed away, at the funeral, I wasn't there. I was at a babysitter, and then um, they came back from the funeral, grabbed me, and explained what happened, how grandma had passed away and she was in heaven, and heaven's where Jesus is, and all these different things. And so um, then we went to the cemetery, and as my mom tells it, I was very upset. I was very upset, and she was like, she assumed that I was upset because grandma died, and that I was heartbroken and everything. And I'm sure that had some role in it, but I looked her dead in the eye and said, "No, you said grandma is in heaven. This isn't heaven. I've seen heaven. This isn't it."
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Wow.
from that point on, there's kind of been this, just kind of a spiritual journey where I went to church. In Mormon parlance, we would say that I had a testimony. And really what that is just a declaration of belief.
Mm-hmm.
First Sunday of the month in mainstream Mormon traditions, you go there, and they have what's called a fast and testimony meeting. So the congregation has been fasting that morning, not eating, drinking, and then everybody gets up and they share their testimony. And it almost has a unified format. Get up, "Good morning, brothers and sisters. I'd like to bear my testimony. I know the church is true. I know blah, 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 blah." And it's a lot of I know, I know, I know. And so for someone who's new, that's like, whoa, like what? Like, oh, they know these things? Like they know Jesus lives? Like, did they see him last week? Like, what is this? But really, it's just a really strong belief. You might as well say, I believe, I believe.
Can you break down the fundamentals of Mormonism and how that's different from like your traditional Christianity?
Yeah, so I will try not to get too far into the weeds because I know what
It's okay if you do.
I know what mainstream Mormons believe, and because I was mainstream Mormon, but I also know a lot of church history and things, how things were once upon a time, and how, in my opinion, they should have stayed that way. So the mainstream concept nowadays, if you have a couple of teenagers in their white shirts and ties knock on your door, the message they're going to be sharing is that God has restored his one true church. And if that doesn't give you the heebie-jeebies, then
Yeah, kind of made my tummy turn just now.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
It's like, oh.
Right. So the message is that after the death of Jesus and the apostles, that there was what's called an apostasy, falling away, that God's true authority, his priesthood, was no longer on the earth until 1830. And then, God sent angels and everyone else to come restore his church. So that's the standard, right? It's we're here. We know that God's authority to do baptisms and all these different things is now back on the earth, and we have temples to where we can do what's called a sealing, and we take your family and make it so you guys are together forever because God's power is given to man to do that. And if you're a family-oriented person, that sounds nice. Who wouldn't want to be with their family forever, right? Unless you have a not great family.
Yeah.
So, isn't there like planets in places that you go after that are different in Mormonism?
The
That's kind
afterlife
of
is
the
curious.
yeah,
Yes.
the afterlife is fun. So there's again the kind of conception of, well, God lives somewhere. That's kind of the idea, right? Like, okay, it's somewhere out there. And there's a book called the Book of Abraham. People will, the parlance is that Joseph Smith translated this book from Egyptian scrolls. Now, he didn't know Egyptian. Spoiler alert, this guy from New York did not know ancient Egyptian. So what do we?
Isn't there hearsay that he was like a grave robber before he decided to share this story?
He was a not grave robber. He was in treasure digging. So that was a common practice. Like
in people's graves.
I mean, they did rituals. So like where they go out to this site and they draw a circle, draw the whatever ritual they're doing, and then there's treasure here. Oh wait, I'm seeing it, but we were supposed to sacrifice this animal. Instead, you guys brought me this one. The spirits aren't appeased, so the treasure has been moved.
Okay.
Wow.
So a lot of folk magic is in Joseph Smith's history, and
here for that.
Yeah, he definitely had the esoteric vibe, and that's the Book of Abraham and the Book of Mormon. When they say Joseph Smith translated it, that's a word that we have an understanding of, right? Like if I speak to you, if somebody's speaking Spanish to me, I translate to you if you don't know Spanish, right? Like because I learned the language, I'm able to say this is what they're saying.
Right.
Back in that time, how it was used is more like a transfer of ideas. So similar to channeling, right? So like get into the state, the records, the historical records that we have, at least for the Book of Mormon, he would put his head in a hat, and then there would be a light, and differing accounts, but supposedly words would appear to him, and he would read the words, and someone would write them down.
Yes,
and
that is
the book is like,
well, and I think that is fascinating, like in regards to comparing it to channeling, because there is an argument of, well, how can you communicate with the dead when their earth language was something completely different? And for me, as someone who is a channel, spirit or energies are going to communicate with us in a way that we understand. Of course, they're not going to communicate in a way that in another language, even if that was their earth language. So I think that is kind of fascinating. And, when you think about it like that, is just an open spiritual interpretation. I'm here for all of that. But to tell me that this is the one true way and you must follow it or you are condemned, that's where I kind of, where you lose me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And that's definitely that's the mainstream approach, right?
Yeah.
Because for lack of better words, that's the sell. We're selling religion. We're selling the one truth. We're selling comfort. Like, I know that I belong to this, and it's like, well, okay. But towards the end of Joseph's life, he said that the fundamental doctrine, if you will, of Mormonism was friendship. And he said, find truth wherever it may be, whether that's with the Protestants, the Methodists, whatever, and bring it in. And so that was kind of that was his approach. Like, why? Why do we have to say that, oh yeah, this is truth? He goes, there were a lot of things that he found truth in that were outside of it, and then bring it in. Temple ceremony is almost verbatim with Masonic rituals, and I know some people are like, oh, masonry. But it's a fantastic vehicle for teaching people complex ideas. You would have these people, these farmers that may have zero education, but they have ties, they're influential, and so they're invited to this Masonic lodge. Well, if you want to get up and be really participate in it, you have to go through these steps. You have to memorize these things and be able to then give it back to another person of, yes, I've learned this. And so their process of communicating those ideas really worked. And so Joseph saw it as a vehicle of like, oh yeah, I've got all these ideas and I've been trying to figure out how to communicate them. I'm going to borrow that here, and ta-da, I've made it my own.
Well, isn't there too like a difference between the temple and then isn't there like another space where you go to church each week? Right? The temple is like sacred and you have to be Mormon to enter it. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So they have what's called a temple recommend, which means that you've met with the bishop, who's the equivalent of a priest. I'm thinking of Father Leroy. Shout out to Father Leroy down in Texas.
If you're listening, Father Leroy. Right.
So yeah, you meet with the bishop and there's a set list of questions like, do you do this? Do you comply with this? Do you do this? Do you pay tithing? There's just a list that they go through. And if it's like, yes, okay, here's your recommend. You can go ahead and go to the temple.
So you get recommended.
Yeah, basically.
Interesting.
And then
I recommend you to the church.
So the first time an individual goes through the temple, it is for themselves. They are going through the ceremony, the rituals, everything for them. After that, you're going through on behalf of someone who's deceased. So you're doing work for the dead. And this is where, some people find it creepy, other people find it lovely. In Mormon theology, it's not. I'll use an example. So this was 2012, and there was a big uproar because someone out there thought it would be a good idea to do baptisms for the dead. And when I mean that, it means I am standing in place of someone. We're not digging up bodies and baptizing them.
Thanks for explaining that.
So I am vicariously acting in that person's stead and being baptized on their behalf. Someone thought it'd be a good idea to baptize Anne Frank.
Oh gosh.
Bit controversial.
Wow.
Just a wee bit, right? So I remember talking with a friend.
She didn't consent to Mormonism.
That's what I was like. I'm like baffled. Yeah. I don't have the words. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm thinking.
And that was the controversy, right? Like what do we know her as? We know her as a Jew, Holocaust victim. And so how dare someone? And it's overzealous, it's like, well, I'm going to do this on behalf of this person. Now,
so only people who weren't baptized Mormon in their living life, then would choose to baptize them in the dead.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then
don't love that.
I don't either. And here's why current day Jaxon doesn't love it, because most of the time you're going back. Now, Mormons are phenomenal at family history. So if you're ever looking for family history resources, there's probably a center near you and they would love to help. You don't have to be a Mormon. You can just walk in. Hi, I hear you guys do family history. We sure do. Now they'll probably try to, convert you, but it's free and you can get access to a whole bunch of information.
My ex-boyfriend was raised Mormon and his mom was so obsessed, and I didn't realize that it was something that a lot of Mormons get into. I just thought it was her own little hobby. And as the years have gone by, I've learned that. I'm just like, wow, what is it about family trees and genealogy that is so fascinating to Mormons. Is there a reason? Do you know?
Yeah, it's because if I can show, like, okay, I am related to this person way back
Top
here.
dog Mormon.
Or, well, more along the lines of like
where to connect the Mormon dots to show that this is the one true religion.
Sorry.
No, it's more along the lines of like, okay, if I'm going to do this work on behalf of someone, the guideline or rule, however you want to interpret it, is I need to show a direct connection to this person. I need to be able to show this is my relative. See, I've done the work. So I'm going to act on behalf of them because they're my relative.
So there was a descendant of Anne Frank.
Supposedly, right? That's where again, these it's a guideline. It is a rule, but overzealous. So with Mormon theology, it's like, well, what happens? Like, is suddenly Anne Frank on the other side just like, what the hell? I'm Mormon? It's like, no, it's
I just want to put it out there that if I die and any of you try to baptize me Mormon, I'm come back and haunt you.
I will make sure
that
you
consent.
Wow.
So that's the other thing is, in Mormon theology, there is an afterlife, a pretty, I wouldn't say complex, it's just intriguing. So immediately after you die, you could say that the equivalent is, what's limbo? I'm blanking on the Catholic term right now.
Like purgatory?
Yeah, there we go.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So kind of a purgatory. So there's an in-between state. There's a heaven purgatory and a hell purgatory. And those people that died not knowing the gospel, well, there are nice people on the other side who are Mormon or just, accepted the gospel that go to that place and say, hi, you want to come to our side? You ready to repent? Like,
they're
accept
still
God?
Trying to get you in the afterlife.
Yeah.
They show up in their white shirts
and their
with
white
their
shirts and ties, right? It's like,
they're like, it's not too late.
It's not too late. We can still get you. In fact,
Wow.
there's a nice guy who's still living. He's in the water right now, and he's baptizing for you. So you want to accept?
Oh my gosh. No disrespect to any other religions, but this is just humorous and amazing. And
it's good.
Yeah, I love it. It's entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. So to your point, Taylar, you don't consent here. You would have the opportunity on the other side as well.
Okay,
even
cool.
if someone baptized and was like, well, now you're Mormon.
I would have to accept. Okay.
Yeah,
good to know.
I don't know if there's like a mail delivery system. You've got mail. Ooh, what's this? They baptized me again. It's the 5th time this week.
Damn, they're still on dial-up. Okay, so after the in-between and they're still trying to get you, what comes after that?
Yeah, so after that is the resurrection. So the day of judgment comes, and it's not, who knows when that is. I don't know if there's like a get in line, all right, you're 1,786 down, so
pick a number.
Yeah, I don't know how that works,
but like Beetlejuice.
So then resurrection comes, and they have different kingdoms of glory. So there's celestial, telestial, terrestrial. And the way to remember that is like, wait, what is it? Sea turtles. It's turtles all the way down. Right? Like celestial, telestial, terrestrial. Sea turtle.
Got it. Okay.
And
so
then
what do those 3 mean?
So the lowest is kind of imagine the best life you could experience here on earth. Like just happy as happy can be. That's telestial. It's like, okay. Yeah, living in a telestial kingdom, happy as a clam. All right. Terrestrial is upgraded. Celestial is like, okay, this is where families are together forever. This is where God lives. If you get to the upper echelons of celestial kingdom, you too could become like God.
Does it just depend on how much money you
We're all
donate?
God.
She got it.
To the
You
church?
got it. Amber got it.
God is us.
Yeah, exactly. I am the sun in drag. So yeah, there's there is that concept, and it's like, well, how do you become like God? And like Amber said, well, currently it's like, congratulations, you are that. But there's the concept being like, truly having all the characteristics of God. So, love, justice, all these different things. That's what a lot of Mormons have in their minds. And yes, there is the notion of like, well, do we get our own planet? I don't know. Do you want your own planet? Like,
yeah, sounds lonely.
What are you gonna do? Like, populate people? And like, I peopled a planet. There we go. Okay, now go do your thing. Oh, I should have thought longer about this. Maybe creating a planet of all X-Men was not a good idea. Okay.
And do they believe like you're in spirit form or like new body, or is there a belief system around that? New body.
Yep.
Okay.
So
whatever you
want.
So
like a reincarnation or no?
Glorified. So each kingdom has a different type of body. That's like that's kind of the thing. So it's different spheres. Think of it in terms of dimensions.
Okay. Yeah.
We're 3D here. So someone who is in a being that's in a 4D dimension probably has a different body than a 3D person does.
Yeah.
And they're probably able to come to a 3D dimension. And that's kind of in Mormon theology, where it's like, anybody high up can go down and visit. People who are there can't go up. So maybe even think of it in terms of vibrations, right? Where it's like,
fascinating.
Higher vibration contains the lower vibrations already. It's on that spectrum there. But for those in the lower vibration to get higher, it's like, okay, how are you getting there?
So fascinating. Like some of the concepts I think are really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't, I can't subscribe to any religion.
There's also a lot of it that's very non-inclusive.
Yeah,
and
I don't
can
like
be
that.
a bit not good.
Yeah.
Problematic.
And very restrictive.
Yeah.
So let's go back to like your life story, because I remember when you went on your mission and you would send me pictures of yourself on your mission. You sent me a Bible with highlighted things. I'm doing drugs in a basement, but I didn't say that. And I'm just like, what am I supposed to do with this fucking Bible? And I was just like, yeah, it looks beautiful. I don't know. Just
Looks
like
great.
trying to pretend like I'm not a fuck up.
By the way, just a coinky dink, but missionaries in your area knocked on the door. That really was a coinky dink. I didn't send them.
Oh yeah, they came to my house, and I was like, "Did you send these people here?" So how did you go from just being like devout, very, very in the church, to kind of over the last 15 years to where you are now?
Yeah. So I started out, we'll go back to a couple of key points in my life. So 7.5 years old, right about there. So I mentioned earlier, Mormons are baptized at 8.
Yeah. Why is that?
It stems from a concept early days where it was like, we don't baptize children. And by children, it's like, think of Catholic, Greek Orthodox, where it's like infant, you're baptized. So there wasn't, in Mormon theology, there's no need for an infant to be baptized because, well, how does an infant sin? And so there's kind of with the death of Jesus and resurrection, that was kind of the Mormon concept of like, so like little infants, the fall of Adam, that's kind of been taken care of by Jesus, right? It's really when we grow up and we make our own choices and our own screw ups that we need Jesus to cover us, right? Right? Yeah. So we'll definitely touch on that fun fact.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the reason 8 was basically the Mormons don't believe that infants need to be baptized. That up until, and I don't know if it was arbitrary. I haven't dug into like why 8, but it was kind of this notion of like, well, 8-year-olds seem to know when they're being mischievous.
Naughty.
So yeah. So okay, before then, we're gonna say that they're not really sure what they're doing. So can they really be sinning if they don't know if it's better? What's right and wrong,
as opposed to being born into sin. And like you're born a sinner, so they have to cleanse you of it.
Yep.
And
yeah. So 8 years old is kind of that like, okay, it's your choice now. And what 8-year-old really knows that I want to be a Mormon for life. But baptism comes. But so tying it back to my story, our congregation each year did kind of a what to expect. What does it mean to be baptized? What's the process? What are these concepts of baptism and the gift of the Holy Ghost and all these different things? What does that even mean? So, it's a Sunday, it's an hour-long meeting, just really neat. I remember thinking, this is so cool. I can't wait to be baptized. And we were leaving the building and I looked at my mom and I'm like, Mom, what's this feeling? She's like, what do you mean? What are you describing? And I'm like, I feel really warm from like the top of my head down to my feet. Like, what is this feeling like? And I started to cry because it was just this overwhelming feeling. Good. Like, wow feeling. And she said, well, that's the Spirit saying that you're making a good choice. It's like, okay, cool. Rolling with it. Fast forward to, let's see, 16. At the time, the highest leader of the church, president of the church, he told all the members across the world, like, this year, I make promises to you that if you read the Book of Mormon cover to cover, your life will be blessed. Okay, sounds good. Now, by this point, I hadn't read it cover to cover. I'd read most of it in Sunday school and, different lessons, covered everything. But actually every single page,
How many pages-ish, do you think?
I think it's 529, something like that.
doable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I may have procrastinated. And I also got in trouble. It was a Christmas vacation and my sister and I had been fighting and I got grounded because we were fighting. And grounding in my house was you're doing chores, you're doing all sorts of stuff, right? So I figured, being the manipulative little 16-year-old that I was, I could get out of this if I just said, "Oh, Mom, I would vacuum, but I'm reading right now."
That's amazing.
And that's how it started. It is, I'm like, oh yeah, well, I better actually read in case she asks me what's going on. But it beats vacuuming, it beats cleaning. And then eventually I got to, it's probably 100, 150 pages in, right about there. I got to an account where I'm like, whoa, this resonates. This guy, he's the son of a prophet, and he's like, I don't know, like my dad's a prophet and all, but what's my standing with God? Like, I'm an okay person, but compared to my dad, I don't know about this. So he decides that he's going to stay up all night praying, doing nothing but praying for all night to know where he stands with God. And I'm like, wait, I feel that way. Like, I feel like I'm a pretty good person, but where do I stand with God? So then after that, like it's sped up, right? Like it wasn't just, oh, I'm reading anytime I think mom's going to come around the corner. It was like, no, I am reading. I am pouring through this book and crying on pages where it's like, whoa, what? This is like my life. What is happening here? And then it's New Year's Eve. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to read this book before the end of the year, just like I said I was going to. Yeah. And I get to the last chapter and I'm starting to kind of feel nervous because my whole life I've been told the Book of Mormon is true. And if the Book of Mormon is true, that means that Joseph Smith was a prophet of God. And that means that God restored his true church on earth. And that means you need to be part of the one true church. Like, okay, that's been my life, right? Like, I lived that. But now I'm in the last chapter and I haven't gotten confirmation necessarily like, yeah, this is capital T true. It's been really good. So last chapter. In the last chapter, missionaries all over the world are jumping to this chapter and having people read it because in there's a promise that if you, now how missionaries frame it is basically what I summed up, right? Like if the Book of Mormon's true, God's going to tell you, join the church. It's kind of the too long didn't read version. If you actually read it and what it says, it tells you to think about the goodness of God. Think of all the good things that God has done from the beginning of the earth down to when you're reading it. Ponder on those things and pray if those things are not true. So it's talking about the goodness of God, not the book you hold in your hand. And if you pray about those things, God will let you know the truth of it. It's like, oh, seems pretty basic. Seems like, yeah, anyone can do that, right? Think about goodness of life and the good that's out there and meditate on that and then call upon a higher power to go, hey, is this true? Like, is life pretty good after all? Is there more goodness in the world than I had thought previously? Yeah, sure is. Huh, okay. But 16-year-old me was focused on capital T true Book of Mormon. So I finish the chapter and I pray and nothing happens. And I'm like, what? What? And I start to feel a little bit of panic. And then I have this feeling and this voice come to me that says, read it again. And I'm like, the entire book? And it's like, no, just the last chapter. Like, okay, all right. So I read it again and it's almost to the very end of the chapter. And the author is saying, come unto Christ and be perfect in him. So not you be perfect, come unto Christ, that spirit, that goodness, that anointed one, which we already are if we connect with that. So come unto that and be perfect in that. Now that's me, how I interpret it now, not 16-year-old me interpretation. But I read those words and the same feeling hit me from crown of my head down to my feet, just poured with this warmth and love. And I was sobbing and I was like, it's true. That's how I interpret it, right? Like, well, of course, this feeling must mean the book is true. So then I started reading it. I think I read it, the Book of Mormon, every single month for a year.
Like on repeat, page, like front cover.
Yeah, I literally cut up a Book of Mormon into, I calculated how many pages I'd have to read every single day to do it every month. And I would walk around school with it. So I'm this high school kid walking around and people are like, what do you got there? I'm like, Book of Mormon. And like,
did you go to a Mormon school?
Pleasant Grove High School. I mean, Utah, the predominant.
I was going to say, it is Salt Lake City, so never mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, it wasn't like a private school. There are Mormon private schools, but I mean, they're pretty few and far between.
Right.
Everybody's like, yeah, public school, we're all screw ups. Let's do it.
There's like 20% people who aren't Mormon, maybe.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
that.
that's true. So fast forward to 19, and I go on a mission. So what happens is you basically send in an application saying, I want to go on a mission. You pay your own way, or the local congregation helps support you. I think they increased the cost, but back then it was $10,000, which, not bad, but you got a budget, man. You get $400 a month. I think that's how the $10,000 breaks down. And then you get X amount for food. Missionaries, if nothing else, be nice to the missionaries, because they're living on like $100 for groceries kind of thing. So
do you get like put up somewhere? How long is it for?
Yeah, so it's 2 years, and they rotate you around. You might stay in one area. There was a missionary who stayed there like 18 months, but usually it's like every 6 weeks there's an opportunity to move to a different area based on inspiration. You've got a mission president there who basically looks at his mission and goes, okay, where do I send missionaries? And sometimes it's like, didn't get the impression to move you. Okay. So
Where were you?
I was McAllen, Texas. So that is right on the border of Mexico, Spanish speaking. Shout out to Brownsville, McAllen, all those fun places. Love them. And yeah, I averaged 3 to 4 months in any given area. I was all over. I was in outside of Corpus Christi in a place called Robstown. If anyone from Robstown is listening, you guys need to change your high school mascot. It is terrible. Terrible.
No.
I can't believe it's a thing. You guys will have to Google Robstown High School mascot later. So anyway,
no,
really, it's bad.
No.
So yeah, I was all over and knocking doors every single day, like a door-to-door salesman for religion. And we had some amazing experiences, heartbreaking experiences. Like there was a couple, both were on board they wanted to join the church. Wife first, she was on board, and then her husband shortly thereafter was on board. And then his mom came in from Mexico, and he told her, he's like, I'm going to join the Mormon Church. And her words were, at least your brother died Catholic.
Ooh. Sad.
Yeah. So he'd given up drinking. That's another thing. So Mormons don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't do drugs, all those different things, right?
Okay.
No coffee.
OG straight edge.
No coffee? So, he'd done all those things, and he really felt like this was what he wanted. And then his mom came in and, through that. And so he decided not to. And he didn't want his wife to either. And that was one thing that we tried not to divide families.
Yeah.
We tried to make it so, like, we want this to be a couple's effort as much as possible. If not, then we want the other party to give consent, essentially. Like, hey, if it's not for you, are you okay with your significant other doing it? Yes or no? No. Oh, that feels restrictive. It's their choice, isn't it? But, that could invite some conflict that we don't necessarily want. With, the message is families can be together forever, not you get to
have your own star.
Yeah, exactly. But there were amazing experiences. We healed a woman of pneumonia. That was a wild experience. We walked in, we were knocking doors, and this little girl answered, and we're like, hi, are your parents here? And she goes, my mom is here. She's really sick though. We're like, oh? And we go in, and this poor woman is just on the couch, and I'm like, you look awful. And this was the time that H1N1 was going around. So yeah, we not a doctor, but she looked like she was in rough shape. And we're like, do you need anything? She's like, no. And then she said, pray for me. We're like, well, we do a special kind of prayer. It's called a blessing. Are you okay with that? She's like, yeah, anything. So, placed our hands on her head. My companion at the time, he was like, just heal her. I'm like, what? He goes, do it, dude. Just heal her. I'm like, you mean say it? Like, be healed. He goes, yep. He's like, do you have faith that it could happen? I'm like, I mean, anything's possible, but that's pretty intense. He's like, I'm not telling you what to do, but I think you should just heal her. I'm like, okay. So hands on head. And anytime I give a blessing, it's an out of body experience. I don't know. It's I don't know what happens, but just that flood, that sensation of I'm not an ego in a head. I'm just it's spacious, and whatever comes to mind, that's what's being said. And there you go. So hands on head, start kind of doing the typical ritual thing, kind of the prayer, and then just had that feeling of like, yep, do it, healer. Okay. And we command you to be healed. All right. Well, have a nice day. We'll talk to you later. Next day, we're in the same neighborhood, and knocking, and that same little girl is out, and we're like, hi, how are you? She comes running up. She's like, she's better. And we're like, what? And so we went and talked to her, and sure enough, she was walking around inside the house. We're like, how are you? And she goes, I'm great. You did it. You healed me. And we're like, beautiful. I mean, good. That's what matters.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So to me, I think like, yeah, any kind of energy work is really powerful. Any type of intention that you're setting is really powerful. If she believed it, that's even more powerful. But when you're 19, you believe this is because of the one true Mormon God.
Yeah, it's God restored his power and authority on earth, and by Jove, I have that. And so that was the mindset. And I agree now, current day Jaxon is spot on, where you have stories even in the Bible. One of my favorite stories is the woman with the issue of blood. And so she's just bleeding constantly, probably just nonstop menstrual issues and hemorrhaging, right? And she hears of Jesus, and she's like, screw it. If I can just get close, maybe he'll heal me. And she goes, forces her way through the crowd and sees him, and he just can't get his attention, but maybe if I could just touch his robe. Touches it, and Jesus is like, whoa, who touched me? His disciples are like, you see really, dude, do you see the crowd? Like, and you're asking who touched? Okay, all right. He's had a little too much wine, everybody. And he goes, no, I felt virtue leave me. And so he looks around and he sees her, and he's like, your faith has made you whole. And if you look at all the miracles in Jesus' story, yes, he's there. He's kind of this conduit, right? But every single time it's go, your faith has made you whole. You are coming to him going, hey, raise my daughter from the dead. Heal me. Do this. And he's like, okay, yeah, that's the faith. That's the trust. Your faith has made you whole. So
love that.
Yeah. And then, so 2 years, lots of learning, lots of growth, and then came home, and that was really hard. Like, if there's one thing that the church could do, it's classes on how to become a normal person again.
Wow, yeah, integrating back into the real world after being a church salesman.
Mm-hmm. Because, for 2 years you're wearing this little plaque and dressing a certain way. Don't flirt with girls. Don't do anything. Like, don't even think about girls. Focus on God. And then you get home, and what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to get married. Go find a girlfriend and get married. It's like, I don't even know how to talk to girls. So yeah, then I started on back to real life, and real life was a conflict of I've lived this way for 2 years, and now I'm supposed to live a normal life, and there's all these different things now. And I was chasing the next spiritual plateau. So there's a belief in Mormonism. It's not when I say there's a belief, this isn't common, like everybody's talking about it. It's out there as a belief. And that belief is everyone is entitled to the experience that Joseph Smith had of seeing God and Jesus. Mm-hmm. And this kind of ties back to what I was telling Amber earlier.
Yes.
So I wanted that. I wanted that experience. Sure, who doesn't want to see God and Jesus, right? So I was like, I'm going to find it. And that led me through kind of an exodus from the church, because I was reading things and I'm like, wait, why don't they teach this commonly in the church? Why is this so obscure? Shouldn't this be like the goal for everyone? Like, come join the church and meet Jesus. Yeah, sign me up. Let's do that. But it wasn't commonly talked about. And so you start looking for those people or those groups that do talk about those things. And that led me to a group of individuals that I'm trying to think of what they're called, if they even have it. Like there's kind of a group that's outside mainstream Mormon, and they're all about that. Like, yeah, let's find Jesus. And their leader, if you want to call him that, at the time was active mainstream LDS, and eventually the church kicked him out, excommunicated. And so he started his own thing, and that kind of was my way out of like, oh, well, if I have to choose between the two, I'm choosing the one that doesn't have $100 billion in its bank, make questionable choices, exclude X, Y, and Z. And yeah, okay. So I became what I called a free range Mormon.
They let you have some sunshine and some fresh grass.
Yeah, exactly.
You can run around wherever you want.
And so, yeah, it was, I was still on the books, if you will, with the mainstream Mormon church, but doing my own thing, exploring. And that led me to psychedelics. And I had no idea. I was with a friend. I knew about psychedelics. I had read Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind.
Awesome.
Just a whole bunch of information. And I always felt like, oh, I'd love to try it someday. But contrary to what they tell you in school, there is not a drug dealer on every corner.
I know. Unfair.
Right? I'm like,
lies.
Do I need to find an elementary school to get drugs? Like, what is this?
They keep it in that unmarked, unwindowed van.
Yeah. Free candy. Listen, candy's great, but you guys got drugs? Like, that's what I'm looking for. So I was out with a friend. He was going through hard times, and he's like, hey, do you want to go get a drink? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So we went and got a couple of beers. And then on our way back, I dropped him off at his house, and I was like, hey, dude, it'll be okay, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, hey, I really appreciate you. By the way, do you want mushrooms? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Is the Pope Catholic? Like, yeah, of course. Let's do this.
Did you just get so excited? Like, it's finally come.
Yes, exactly. So he goes into his house and he comes out with a Ziploc bag, and I go home. It's a Wednesday night. I'm like, let's do this. It's 8:00 at night. And I had, by that time, I think I had smoked marijuana like a handful of times, maybe. So I kind of thought like, oh yeah, it'll be like that. Like, you know, if I get too high, I'll just sleep it off, right? Like that's a thing.
No.
No.
Are you like 21, 22-ish?
26.
Oh, okay. So
I
you've
didn't have
been
my
on a
first
journey
beer.
since.
Yeah, I didn't have my first beer until 25.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just sitting there in my bedroom and I'm like, I don't know. How much do you, sure.
Do you even know like how much is in the bag? Like how much he gave you? Just here's a bag of mushrooms.
Yep. I have no idea. I'm like,
shit.
And so I'm like, well, maybe, maybe half. Yeah, let's do half. Half seems nice, right?
Oh my gosh. Oh no.
So I text my brother.
Yeah, exactly. I finally saw Jesus.
Spoiler alert, he is me. So I text my brother because it's like 90 minutes in and nothing's happening. And I'm like, dude, I think I got duds. And he goes, that's not a thing. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes,
it's not a thing.
It's not a thing. He goes, when did you take it? 8. Okay. Well, buckle up, Buttercup. You're about to go for a real long ride. And shortly thereafter, it hit. And I was just like, whoa, this is intense. What is going on? And
is time?
And I'm alone. I'm tripping alone. Don't do that. Get a sitter. Have support. Have friends.
Yes.
Put electronics away. Don't scroll Facebook while tripping.
No.
But I got this. So I'm having these experiences, and I have this sense of oneness, and everything's connected, and it's so beautiful. And then the ego mind is like, dude, you're tripping balls. Like, of course everything's feeling this way. Like, it's just the drugs, man. And I'm like, I don't know. Well, and I'm scrolling Facebook, and it's this video of a dog that is being rescued. Like, they found it and rehabilitated this dog, and I'm sobbing. Like, this is the most beautiful story. I'm so grateful that the universe brought these people to rescue this dog. And isn't it wonderful? See, everything's connected. I needed this. My brain's like, dude, it's a random video on Facebook. Get over it. Everything's connected. Sure, the algorithm knows you. Great. And so the response of this was like, no, I'll prove it to you. I'll prove everything's connected. The next video is going to show you that everything's connected. Okay. So the ego mind goes, if everything's connected, then this next video needs to have something about J.R.R. Tolkien. Because I was big into Lord of the Rings at this point. Still love it, but I'm like, okay, sure. Scroll up, and it's Stephen Colbert. And I had zero idea, absolutely none, that Stephen Colbert is one of the biggest Lord of the Rings fans. Had no idea. So I'm sitting there, and he's talking about, he's like, oh, I love this song. It's by Chance the Rapper, and it's called My Favorite Song. And I was listening to it, and it's like, Chance on acid, rapping to that LSD. And I'm like, see, I'm tripping balls. And it's a song about see? My brain's like, it still has to apply Tolkien for this to work. I'm like, So a couple.
I'm just envisioning like the devil and the angel on your shoulder.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. That.
Classic.
And so a minute later, he's tying this song to an obscure reference in Lord of the Rings.
Fascinating.
My gosh.
And I was like,
it.
You
That's
win.
it.
You win. Everything's connected. Everything's connected. So from that point forward, psychedelics became a big part of my spiritual journey.
Beautiful.
Love the healing. That I wish I could say that trip was a good one. It wasn't. There were a lot of grip on and hold through.
But it's still good, even when it's scary and terrifying.
Exactly.
Like it is just that deep healing. And I'm sure regardless, who fucking knows how much you took that night.
Yeah.
But what happened and came through clearly your soul needed that, and there was so much undoing that you had to go through, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, my friends call me a masochist because the vast majority of my experiences have been hellish in the moment. But through integrating and everything after, I've been super grateful for them. And masochist because I tend to push the envelope where it's like, what's 10 grams? Let's, what's that like? It's like, don't do that. That's a lot.
Have you done that?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fucking mushrooms, listeners.
I think that's about how much I took my first time. Like an eighth.
Jesus.
And then my friend was like, okay, I gotta go home now. And I was like, wait, what am I supposed to? We were like playing Frisbee at a park.
No.
I was like, oh,
now what do I do?
Yeah. So same.
Oh gosh.
But I'd already tripped balls for a lot of times on LSD. So I was like kind of prepared.
My scariest trip was 2 grams. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
10 grams.
10 it's a
you were trying to see Jesus.
Oh yeah. Oh, we found him. He's me.
Yeah.
Yes. Tell me about that realization. Like, what was that experience when you're like, oh, I am God, I am Jesus, I am the tree?
It was, so I got up to use the restroom, and
the bathroom's always fun when you're tripping, by the way.
Yeah, it's a great time.
They tell you not to look at yourself, but it's interesting if you do.
Is. And so, yeah, that's what I was doing. I'm washing my hands, and I look up, and I'm like, whoa. Who is this guy? Just like staring. And so I wear glasses, but with psychedelics, glasses have to come off for me. Like my vision gets better. And so I'm looking at myself and I'm like, who are you? Who are you? And then, visual distortions happening constantly. Like this face is changing over and over and over. And it's like, oh, I get it now. This is not me.
Yes.
And that's where, and just that feeling of like, oh, well, of course. This is the divine dreaming of itself. Okay. Yeah, I'm in. So, yeah. And, I've met some amazing people because of psychedelics. I've got a couple of friends. They're still researching and they're working to get like actual publication stuff. So I can't go into too much detail, inside trader information, but they are working to demonstrate, hopefully prove, that Joseph's religious experience, his what's known as the first vision, was a psychedelic experience.
I totally believe that.
Yeah. So for those that haven't heard Joseph's story, he's confused. He's a 14-year-old boy, roughly that age, and he's confused by religion. His mom is Methodist and his dad is kind of just there, doesn't really care one way or the other for religion. And there's a big revival going on in the area, so everybody's vying for, come join our church, our congregation's true. No, don't join them. They're false. And look, it says here in the Bible, and another minister's like, yeah, well, check here in the Bible. And it's like, wait, you guys are using the same book. Like, how is there this much confusion over the same book? And so he decided, well, I guess I better read it and figure out for myself. And in the book of James, 1st chapter, 5th verse, it says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that gives to all men liberally and upbraideth not. You're not going to be punished by God for asking a question. And then it's like, and to he who asks, wisdom will be given. It's not quite how it goes. I have it memorized in Spanish, but anyway.
Fascinating.
You say it a lot on the mission, right? Like these verses, and it's like, okay, I've said this a
Also,
million times in
side
Spanish.
note, interesting that a lot of churches don't welcome questioning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's straight up right there.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Fascinating.
And so, yeah, that's what, according to Joseph's own account, he said, never had any passage hit him like that passage did. And so he decided to put it to the test. They had been clearing trees in the area, which, hint, hint, wink, wink, where do mushrooms grow?
Yep.
But it says that, he went out to this grove where they had been cutting down trees. And his account, the official account, is that he kneeled down and prayed to God. And that as he was praying, he felt like this darkness come over him and his tongue was bound and he felt like he couldn't move. Like, that sounds a bit psychedelic.
Yep. Been there.
Right? And then just as he was about to give into despair, he saw a light. And in that light, he saw two beings. And one of them pointed to the other and said, "This is my beloved son, hear him." And he has this experience with God, this divine transcending experience. I've got a friend who suggests that instead of seeing, God and Jesus, the two beings that he's seeing are Jesus and himself. And the one being Jesus is pointing to Joseph saying, "This is my beloved son. You hear him," i.e., hear yourself. I'm like, I like that.
I can't wait for this to be out in the open and proven.
How would you prove something like this, though?
Yeah, so they went back east to where Joseph's homestead is and explored the area.
Missouri?
So very first was New York, Palmyra, New York. And then eventually they made their way west. And there's the dog barking.
There's the life.
There's life. So my friends went back to that area, and sure enough, in this area they found mushrooms.
Yes, they did.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they have a really good argument, in my opinion. They're doing great research to connect dots of like, okay, that's great, but would they have the knowledge to brew these things or make it so like, are you overdosing? Like what's going on here? And they have a really good case of showing how they were familiar with those properties and that's why.
That's so neat.
Love it.
Here for that.
So we are getting towards the end of our time. Do you want to tell us kind of where you are in your spirituality now and what some of your practices are before we get into the final questions?
Absolutely. So I am a huge fan of dreams, dream work and inner work. There's something about dreams that are unconscious and the collective unconscious is trying to communicate to us. And I find that those messages, when we pay attention, explain a lot of what's going on. And when we ignore them, that's when the potential pathologies arise, the potential depression, all these things. And then if you really start looking at dreams, it's like, whoa, I'm sorry I haven't been paying attention, unconscious. I get it now.
Wow.
Are you journaling your dreams every morning when you wake up? And then you notice that your recollection is stronger the more you journal out your dreams?
Absolutely. So for those that don't feel like their dreams are vivid, you can't recall it, write down anything. My very first journal entry for a dream was music box in the shape of a hand. That's it.
Wow, so
It's like
groovy.
I'm like, I don't know what this means. I don't know anything else about it, but that's all that I remember. And the more I started to write things down, the more that it kind of programmed the brain to be like, oh, okay, I should remember these things.
I'm
this
ready
makes sense.
for the messages.
Yeah.
Sorry. I have to stretch.
No, you're good. Another thing are if there's a book out there, if people use THC is known to affect your REM. And so if you're looking to get into dream work, but you don't recall those REM dreams, there is a book called Liminal Dreaming, Exploring Consciousness at the Edges of Sleep. It's by Jennifer Dumpert. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. And that's so as you start to fall asleep, there's a stage of dreaming. It's called hypnagogia. And then as you wake up, so if you've ever woken up at like 7 a.m. on a weekend and you're like, oh, no, I'm going back to bed. And you start having those dreams right away, that's hypnopompia. And a lot of people, it's like, oh no, I remember those dreams super well.
Same.
Yeah.
That's where the good shit's at.
So that's definitely, again, for those that THC, whether recreationally or medicinally, those are great options for dream work as well that you can explore. But otherwise, yeah, just interpreting dreams. Please don't go get a dream dictionary. Those are filled with such bullshit.
Garbage. Yeah, I have
really
a dream
is.
deck and I'm like, this is not it at all.
It's not, because, kitchen table, that means one thing to me and a completely different thing to someone else, right?
Yeah, you have to create your own dictionary with the spiritual meanings and the dream meanings. It's the same thing with channeling and learning how you're receiving information. And if you are seeing things coming through, you have to decide, what does this mean, so that spirit can communicate with you in your own little language. Same thing for dreams.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So there's another book that I highly recommend for anyone interested in dream analysis. It's called Inner Work, and that's by Robert Johnson.
Taylar, weren't you just saying we need to find someone to talk about dream work with? Someone who's been on our wish list for so long, and here you are.
We'll have to have you back for a whole dream episode.
Yes, please.
That'd be wonderful. Okay. So yeah, dreams are a big part, and then meditation's probably the biggest. Just focusing on. I practice non-dual meditation, which has the philosophy of. So it means that there's not two; it's just one. There's not a ego. There's not a meditator meditating. There's just this. There's just experience. So there's no ego or person riding around in your head, which is kind of that feeling, that spotlight attention, like focus on your breath. And it's like, I am up here in my head, focusing on my breath that's down here. It's like, no. You as the whole are this experience. And there's just consciousness and its contents. And so it kind of points towards the ego is an illusion, which I love that idea, because we often hear like, oh, you got to kill the ego. It's like, well, there's nothing to kill. It's just an illusion. It's like when you walk into your garage and you think, snake in the corner. Oh, wait, no, that's just rope or a hose. Just kidding. Yeah. There's nothing to do to make that an extension cord. It already is the extension cord. It's just recognizing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I do have a question. Now, in today, Jaxon, do you still get that warm feeling on the top of your head down to your feet? And if so, what is your interpretation of that now?
Great question.
Yeah, I think that it's a good indicator for it's true. Now,
Yeah.
what does I think that true is an interesting thing, because in our day and age we think of true as scientific, verifiable,
fact.
all these different things. Yeah, fact. But true in kind of an older term is more like true to form, like true to a blueprint, true to this, true to self, true to what's higher. And so there were things like, it's not necessarily, oh, Mormon, capital T, true. It was, this is good. This is on the right path. This is true to form. Whatever I was doing, right? Like, okay, you know, it's on a path that isn't bad. Yeah, go for it. See where it takes you. Exactly. So yeah, those moments do occur, and I'm not chasing them anymore. That was a big thing, right? Like chasing the spiritual peaks. It's like every day is magical if you pay attention.
Yes.
Love that.
I love that so much. And I really adore that you have such a vivid memory and, you know, the feeling, like the whole five senses of that at such a young age, and to remember that and to know that to be such a powerful point in your life. I think that's incredible, because we are all spiritual beings and we all have that connection, and we're taught to forget it or that we're making it up. And, you know, most of us are. And it's, you know, so we don't always grow up remembering when we were a kid, we had these little zings or messages coming to us that were memorable. And yours just so happens to line up with like right before you're getting baptized. And, you know, so of course there is kind of that blueprint memory of
I think his was a positive experience, though. A lot of times when you're younger and you tell someone that you're having this spiritual experience, people are like, you're silly, you're just a kid, it's just your imagination. But his was like validated by his parents.
Yeah, that's a good point too, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. And
even imagination now, like if you, for those interested, that Inner Workbook talks about not only dreams but active imagination, which is an amazing technique to get in touch with the unconscious. And, you know, think of everything that we have, even in science, is a result of someone's imagination.
Absolutely.
So what makes their imagination better than yours?
I have another question. So you said one of your titles is a dad. How do you feel like you're raising your kids differently than your experience, than you were raised?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing is the emphasis on it's okay to feel. And
absolutely,
making it a point to show when I screw up, right? Like, I apologize. I should not have acted that way.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful and so important.
I love that. I can't wait to see how all my friends' kids turn out different than we did. Do you want to ask one of the questions?
Yeah. So as you know, since you are a listener, also we have two questions, burning questions that we have to ask all of our guests. And our first one is, what is something that you just can't live without for self-care?
Oh, currently it's I am a nerd for espresso. I absolutely love it.
Like, do you have a machine and you make it at home and it's like a whole routine for you, ritual?
Yeah.
Love it. How do you like your espresso?
Oh man, I've gone into the deep dark web of Reddit.
Like, I know you're a nerd about it.
I'm such a nerd about it.
How fun.
You know, that part of the fun is just messing around and like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm gonna tweak this, tweak that, and maybe if I try it this way, and oh, that was garbage, but okay, moving on. I think I got into it because I'm a little bit pretentious, a little like, ooh,
A little.
perdón, fancy. But my jam used to be wine. I wanted to be a sommelier for the longest time, but Utah doesn't have the right environment. You know,
Yeah.
True.
pretty dry straight. So
I can't wait for you to come
hang
visit.
out. Yeah.
The wineries
There's so
here.
much great wine out here.
So good.
And yeah, so I turned to espresso because I can drink it during the day at work.
Legal drugs.
Exactly, legal drugs.
Yeah. Okay, and then if you now could tell little Jaxon one thing, or your younger self, whether that be yesterday or when you were a child, one thing, what would it be?
Okay, I would tell younger me, it's not your fault and it's okay.
Absolutely.
Such good advice. It's
Such
so
good
great that
advice.
you get to tell your kids that now too. So beautiful.
I love that. I have one more question.
Okay.
Does your wife have any like oracle decks that you want to pull from?
Ooh.
We usually do a card pull at the end, but if you have one, I would love for you to do the card pull. Okay.
Yay.
Will you pull cards for us?
Absolutely.
Yay.
Right,
is this your deck or your wife's deck?
This is mine. Yep. This
Yay.
is mine. So we have a we have a
Sorry for assuming you didn't have your own.
It's totally fine. We're kind of no touchy of each other's decks just because
perfect.
Kind of that transference.
Yeah.
Do I want to get I don't want to mix my energy with yours and mess up any reading.
So what deck are you pulling from? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Tarot de Marseille of the New Incarnation. So I found this on Etsy. I love the Marseille deck.
Yes.
It's fantastic, beautiful artwork. And this creator went through and redid all of the minor cards. So instead of being symbols and stuff, each one kind of has like a story attached to it, similar to the major arcana.
How fun.
All right. We're going to do, I don't know what we are. Ooh.
I can't
love
see
it.
what this is.
I will flip it around, but I just want to show. All right. I think it is. All right. It is the devil.
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Will you take a picture of that for us and send it to us so we can put it on the Instagram page? And then if you could take a picture of the deck.
The deck. Yeah.
Absolutely. Would love to do that. So just this is one where I feel like it's people dread it, the tower, and
death.
Death. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, it's like
the scary
I love the death card.
I know, there's my favorites though.
It's so I'm going to, just to do it justice, I've got his booklet. Yes. I know some people are like, ignore the little white book, and that's totally fine.
No,
I usually agree
like to
in the sense
both.
of like, get the feel for it, go with what it means to you, and the creator put it for a reason. So
yes, agree.
The devil. How does one distinguish the dreadful devil from the mischievous imp or forest god? It's not that difficult. Once upon a time, in the forest close to people's dwellings, there lived a cheeky and naughty young imp. He enjoyed inventing all kinds of amusements, playing with children, teasing adults, especially those who observed the decencies on the outside but dreamed of real orgies in private. Excellent.
Lovely.
For everybody who was ready to laugh together with him, he was nice and sweet. He was a nice and sweet devilkin. But for the deceitful, dishonorable, and I don't know that word. That's a fun one.
That surprises me.
I have never come across that word in my life. So moving on. So he laid snares for those that were difficult to avoid. At times, lovers who went completely crazy over their lusty passions were were caught in his snares. The young imp grew up, and he laughed less and less as he encountered grave human vices. He grew into the true devil, and his amusements and traps turned into fetters for the unfortunate. But many people understood that if they could make him laugh, he would become a lovely imp again for some time and let them go.
I love that.
Me too.
What a fun little story about the devil.
Mm-hmm.
What a fun deck.
Oh, love this.
Do you have any intuitive hits about this card after reading that story? Things that are coming through for you, messages, little tingles at the top of your head?
Yeah, so Taylar knows this a little bit, and in the mode of being vulnerable, the last couple of weeks have been crazy. So my 18-month-old daughter had a seizure, stopped breathing, and it was traumatic.
Oh my God.
She's okay.
So sorry.
We went to a neurologist, and all the results came back in the clear for now. So we're going to keep that.
Wow.
But then this morning, high fever and what's going on.
Baby.
So she has a double ear infection right now. And that kind of, it feels like the devil, right? Just so much hitting. But I had a friend or a colleague actually who was like, oh my gosh, you guys, you can't catch a break. And just out of nowhere, I said, I don't know that we would catch a break unless it was a brand new virus named break.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of that laughter moment of like, making a joke of it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Laughter.
And so just that reminder, like even the card itself, you look at it where the card itself is masculine and feminine. It has all the parts of male and female. And so it's one of those things where it's like, whatever you're going through right now, the bad, it seems like, oh my God, the devil's just on my case. Take that moment, like in the story, like try to look for the good, try to look for a moment to laugh. Look for people around you to have a positive experience with. Hug it out with someone. If you can embrace the devil for a little bit, might be surprised what you learn there.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Beautiful.
And I'm feeling called to remind you of your healing abilities, Jaxon. You healed a woman with pneumonia. And I know it's harder when you are attached to the person, but know that you have a lot of healing energy running through you. And it's more powerful when you can use it on your own blood, your own DNA, yourself and your family. So remember to just give her that power and that love and know that it does run through you and you have a very powerful ability to send healing love to her.
Thank you. I needed that. Truly.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're amazing.
this was amazing.
Full body chills.
Yeah.
So much magic. So grateful to get to talk with you and sharing your stories and knowledge. This is a really fun episode, and yes, we absolutely will have you back and we'll just talk dreams.
Yeah, if people are interested in chatting with you, are you open to that? If
Absolutely.
we give people, where can they find you?
I'm technically off social media, but if they reached out, just email jaxon.peterson@gmail.com.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Well, this has been wonderful, and we're so grateful. And we're gonna do a new way of
signing off.
So, Jaxon, will you please join us in giving some self-care advice to our listeners?
Absolutely. Okay.
Who wants to start? Me?
Yeah, I'll for
it. Hug a puppy.
Do something for your inner child.
Dance and sing spontaneously.
Stare at yourself naked.
Look at your soul in the mirror.
Read a book that you've been putting off for too long.
Love that.
Yeah, I actually today was thinking like I want to do that 10 pages a day thing. There's so many books that I love and 10 pages is so easy. I'm going to start doing that.
Perfect.
Perfect advice.
All right.
And as always, drink some water.
Drink some water.
Bye.
Bye. Find us on TikTok and Instagram at Waking Up the Witch.
Please email us your witchy stories, ghost stories, corrections, and advice questions to wakingupthewitch@gmail.com.
Love you.
Love you.